Joe Biden. That's what you're saying. And
What
your
is the
example that you
popular
point to
opinion?
is when a woman drove her 4,000-pound SUV into an officer and he rightly shot her because of that. You're saying that this is justification to ignore the law, ignore the 2024 election, and destroy the U.S. economy. Real smart stuff.
Do you believe well, there's just not a lot of common ground here, sir. You believe that woman was properly shot?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you drive your car into a cop, he's justified in shooting.
Let's agree.
Michael Knowles appeared on Piers Morgan and Censored to debate Scott Galloway, who has been a strong critic of Donald Trump. During the discussion, Galloway argued that Trump has handled several major issues poorly. Knowles pushed back hard, defending his position and challenging Galloway's claims throughout the exchange. The debate became heated, and Piers Morgan watched as both guests went back and forth. Let's get into the clip and see how the discussion played out.
Politicized argument. I hope, my favorite commentary on the Super Bowl was from the account that's supposed to be Elmo, the Sesame Street character, and that is that he hoped that both teams had a really fun time. I just don't say it. I'm glad the majority of America now under the age of 18 is now non-white. The NFL was a brilliant move to bring on an artist, the most popular person in the world. So people watched it, seemed to enjoy it. It's not my kind of music, but I heard Tom Petty or George Michael wasn't available. So more power to them.
I didn't know much about him, but I got to say I really enjoyed it. But that's before I looked at social media and was instructed to hate it or love it. So let's to what your campaign's about. Resist, unsubscribe. Now, for those who are not familiar with it, just in simple terms, articulate what the campaign is trying to achieve.
Well, I've been upset by some of the actions of the Trump administration, specifically as it relates to kind of a mass secret police, I think, terrorizing American cities is how I would describe it. And I think action absorbs anxiety, so I've taken my modest footprint and asked people to resist and unsubscribe. If you look at where Trump has backed away from policies, it's not because of protests or even the courts. It's been when the markets respond. So when he backed away from the notion of annexing Greenland or away from punitive kind of irrational tariffs, it was when the bond market or the S&P collapsed. And right now, only 10 companies make up 40% of the S&P, and those companies are highly dependent upon subscription revenues. So I wanted to send a signal that people have kind of this weapon hiding in plain sight. And that
I'm also interested in hearing from Hispanic viewers, especially those who consider themselves conservatives. Share your thoughts in the comments about the current ICE situation and how it makes you feel. I know many conservative Hispanics from different backgrounds, and some have said they worry about being mistaken for someone in the country illegally because of how they look. Whether you think those fears are justified or not is not the point. I simply want to know how people are feeling. Many on the left believe stories on social media that claim ICE is randomly grabbing anyone with brown skin and making them disappear. That is likely an exaggeration. At the same time, some people believe there is still room for officers to be more careful about who they stop or detain. The truth is probably somewhere between those two views. I would really like to hear what Hispanic conservatives think, so leave your opinion in the comments.
Is their non-participation specifically to unsubscribe from the tech platform? So I built a site, Resist and Unsubscribe, where you can learn how to easily unsubscribe from different big tech subscription platforms. I'm getting about 100,000 unique sites a day. I think we're going to get somewhere between 300,000 and a million unsubscriptions. But I want to send a signal to Americans that the most radical act in a capitalist...
I have to apologize for stopping again, but I have to say this. If someone were casting a movie and needed an actor to play a person who sounds incredibly dull and difficult to listen to, this speaker would fit the role perfectly. His voice comes across as flat and unexciting, making it hard to stay interested. I know that sounds harsh, but that is honestly the impression I get while listening.
Society is non-participation, and that you have power to decide where you want to spend your money and where you don't want to spend your money.
Do you own stock in any of the big tech companies, you personally?
I do, and I've decided I'm going to sell. I own stock in Apple and Amazon. I started selling my Apple stock. To be honest, Amazon's a tough one for me because it was my big tech stock of 2026. I want to be clear, Pierce. I don't have perfect moral clarity around this, and I'm not telling people which platforms they should unsubscribe from or if they shouldn't go into work. I'm a guy like you who has some economic security, so I don't want to lecture. I don't want to be generous with other people's time or money. What I'm suggesting is that if, like me, you go on, you can find out that you might have 3 Apple TV Plus accounts. You didn't realize it. Maybe you don't need 3 LLM subscriptions. I found out when I unsubscribed from Amazon Prime, I was a member of Amazon One Health, and I'd been paying $200 a year for the last 6 years. Do you need 2 ride-hailing programs? But I'm going to be transferring my assets out of Goldman Sachs into the RBC branch in Minneapolis. I'm going to sell down my Apple and my Amazon stock. I'm going to try and lead by example here, but I want to be clear. I'm not perfect. I will still always opt for my economic security. But the people who take time on a Saturday to protest, the people who are registering people to vote, some people decide not to go into work, that's a real sacrifice. What I'm stating is the biggest impact relative to the amount of disruption in your life is simply to unsubscribe from one or more big tech platforms. Do you need 6 streaming media platforms? But circling back, yeah, I've begun selling down my big tech stocks.
Bring the panel back. Michael Knowles, what's your response to this campaign by Scott Galloway?
Well, I think it's a desperation play, particularly after President Trump won the popular vote, particularly on the issue of mass deportations, the illegal immigration, because what it sounds like the professor is doing is calling on people to punish tech companies, not merely for supporting Trump or in some cases in any way supporting Trump, but because he rightly observes they're propping up the U.S. stock market. And so the upshot of all of it is that the left wants to tank the U.S. economy in order to punish President Trump for the crime of having been elected by most American voters. I get it. You know, if my party had just been vanquished at the polls and if the other party had unified government, I might be trying to make these desperation plays too. I think it's contrary to the common good. I think if the U.S. economy actually did take a serious hit, that would really hurt people, some of the people that the professor claims to speak for. I think it's unpatriotic generally, but I kind of get it because they've tried their electoral and political and legal means. They've tried to take out Trump 10 ways from Sunday, and it hasn't worked. So I guess the last attack is let's try to destroy Amazon.com.
Scott, your response?
Yeah, we don't know each other, but I can guarantee you there's almost nothing that's desperate about my life.
Not your life, the campaign is what I'm saying.
If you look at polls, I would argue that polls are not the president's friend right now. And
Michael Knowles makes a strong point when he says this looks like a desperate move. At the same time, it also seems like a business opportunity. The idea reminds me of services that help people cancel subscriptions, except this version is aimed at people who are angry about Donald Trump and want to cut ties with certain companies. From that angle, it is actually a clever business idea. Scott Galloway also argues that current polling may not be working in Trump's favor, and that point is not necessarily wrong. Looking ahead, I think American politics may continue to swing between Republicans and Democrats because many voters believe their lives are getting worse. They often blame the president for problems involving the economy, social issues, or immigration, no matter who is in office. New controversies always appear, and many people expect the president to fix everything. Social media only adds to those fears by constantly highlighting negative stories. Instead of relying on elections alone to improve life, people may find more success by focusing on the things they can personally control. That is much harder than simply voting for a different party, but it is often the more meaningful path.
We have is probably the most unpopular president at this point in the presidency in history. And 2, everyone has the right to decide where they're going to spend money and where they aren't. And we have a very fragile economy right now with just 10 companies propping up the S&P and responsible for 70% of the earnings. And if somebody decides that they want to send a message to the administration and a message to the president and a message to these tech leaders who have been texting me how upset they are about these policies but not speaking out publicly, then I think that's their right. And
what policies do you object to, Professor?
Well, having a mass secret police shooting mothers in the face or denying a person
police? You're referring to
border. Please stop interrupting me. I'm just trying to clarify. I let you prattle on with your trace. Let me
I know.
finish.
I'm just trying to understand what you're attempting
Denying
to
a
say. You're
person's
referring to
first,
Border Patrol and
second,
secret police?
denying a person's First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights, putting 10 bullets in him, a person, an ICU nurse,
You're
who was
talking about Alex Freddie and Renee Good?
taking care of veterans, bringing the chaos of the border to every city, having a mass secret police, tariffs to
What
make
is secret
absolutely
about
no
Border Patrol,
economic
Professor?
success, and our
What's secret
declining
about it?
prosperity of Americans. I think there's a lot to choose from here.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify, because you say that you're very upset and we need to tank the U.S. economy in order to stop these awful
I did not
policies.
say we need to tank the U.S. economy.
You said you want to damage the companies that are propping up the U.S. economy. So I'll just make the
I
point.
say it's your right to not support companies.
You say it's their right, but you're calling on them to do it. So you're encouraging them. This is not a neutral action. You're saying that you want that to happen. You want it to happen because President Trump is supporting people, not through a secret police, through a very public police, which is Border Patrol and ICE.
Obama deported more people
following the
than
laws
Trump.
passed, excuse me, Professor,
Obama
following the laws
deported more
passed
people
by
than
the
Trump.
U.S. Congress and the laws that President Trump won the popular vote to enforce after years of lawless neglect by Joe Biden. That's what you're saying.
What
And your
is the
example that you
popular
point
opinion?
to is when a woman drove her 4,000-pound SUV into an officer and he rightly shot her because of that. You're saying that this is justification to ignore the law, ignore the 2024 election, and destroy the U.S. economy. Real smart stuff.
So you believe well, there's just not a lot of common ground here, sir. You believe that woman was properly shot?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you drive your
so
car into a cop, you probably he's justified in shooting.
Let's agree to disagree. And if you want to support these firms, you can. I've decided not to.
Why not explain exactly why Michael Knowles is wrong? He makes a clear argument that if someone deliberately drives a heavy vehicle at a police officer, deadly force may be justified. Instead of directly responding to that point, the other speaker simply says there is not much common ground and suggests agreeing to disagree. That avoids the actual argument rather than answering it. If someone disagrees, it would be more helpful to explain why instead of ending the discussion there. Let me know what you think about the debate between Michael Knowles and Scott Galloway on Piers Morgan and Censored. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another upload.